Hello and welcome to my Halls of Valor dungeon guide. This guide is for normal mode only, so any additional heroic mechanics will not be covered. At the start of the dungeon, you just have to go through a few trash packs to get to the first boss. These trash packs aren't that challenging, just keep interrupts on the Thundercallers when they cast Thunderous Bolt to minimize damage. Some players will get a circle around them with a lightning cloud overhead. After a couple of seconds, lightning will strike and damage all players within the circle, so just move away from the group. The final pack before the first boss also includes a Storm Drake, which spawns lightning tornadoes that deal damage to nearby players. Just avoid them as necessary. The first boss is Heimdall. He will cast Bloodletting Sweep, which deals damage in a frontal cone, applies a damage over time effect, and reduces healing received for a few seconds. This is instant cast, so the tank needs to keep the boss faced away from the group. He will also spawn Dancing Blades at the location of a player. These blades will just whirl around on the spot and deal damage to anyone they hit. Finally, Heimdall will cast Horn of Valor. This will deal damage to everyone in the group and summon Storm Drakes that fly across the platform, casting a lightning breath. Just swing your camera to each side to see which direction the drakes are flying through and move accordingly. After Heimdall is dead, you can move on and clear more trash packs. The trash is mostly the same as those found at the start, but you'll also come across a Sentinel. The Sentinel will cast a charged pulse which deals damage around him, so try to avoid it if possible. He will also shield himself to absorb damage, but this can be purged or dispelled. You will also come across a Mystic which casts healing spells, so try to interrupt or CC him until killed. When you enter the halls, you have the option of going left or right. There is a boss in each direction and both need to be killed, so it doesn't matter which way you go. This room has a lot of mobs packed closely together, so be careful not to pull any additional packs. In this run we chose to go left and face Hyria. Before facing her you will need to kill two mini-bosses. Ulmir the Enlightened will cast Searing Light which deals damage to a target, but it can be interrupted. His primary ability is Sanctify, which is a channeled ability that causes orbs of light to radiate away from him in all directions, so move between them to avoid the damage. The other mini-boss is Sultan. He will periodically spawn a Void Zone and immediately cast Eye of the Storm right after. Eye of the Storm deals large AoE damage to the group, but you can mitigate it completely by standing inside the Void Zone. Once Sultan is dead, Hyria will enter the fight. The ghosts of Sultan and Ulmir will begin channeling her, giving her new abilities and increased damage. To counteract this, your tank will need to move the boss to one side. If you move the boss to the side of Ulmir, his channel will give Hyria the Sanctify and Expel Light abilities. Sanctify is the same skill that Ulmir used, so just avoid the orbs of light like you did previously. Expel Light is a debuff that is applied to a player. After 3 seconds that player deals damage to everyone within 8 yards, so just keep out of the group. Every 4 seconds while Ulmir is channeling his empowerment onto the boss, Sanctify and Expel Light will deal 10% increased damage. Depending on your group you can manage several stacks of this damage increase, but we change sides after the second Sanctify. When you move to the side of Sultan, Hyria will lose the abilities she gained from Ulmir and will gain the Eye of the Storm and Arcing Bolt abilities. Eye of the Storm is the same spell used by Sultan, so stay inside the Void Zone to mitigate the damage. Arcing Bolt is simply a chain lightning. Hyria's only ability that is maintained throughout the encounter is Shield of Light, which is used in the direction of the tank. It deals a lot of damage in a straight line and knocks back anyone hit. Your tank just needs to be careful that the boss doesn't knock them into the middle of the room, or else she will move to the center and be empowered by both mini-bosses simultaneously. After Hyria was dead, we moved to the opposite side of the halls. There you will find a portal that takes you to a forest area. In here you're looking for a wolf boss named Fenrir. He can either be on the left or right side. Most of the trash here can be avoided, so you can save some time and only kill what is necessary. Fenrir will cast Ravenous Leap. He will leap on random players, dealing damage and applying a stacking bleed effect to everyone within 10 yards of impact. Everyone should spread out 10 yards to avoid getting too many stacks of the bleed. He will also cast Unnerving Howl, which interrupts all spell casting for 3 seconds, so healers just need to keep an eye out for this. He will periodically use Claw Frenzy, which deals a large amount of damage split between players within 12-yard cone in front of him. The damage isn't a lot on normal mode, but melee can soak it with the tanks to more evenly spread the damage. Around 60% or so, Fenrir will retreat and run back to his cave. You can see which way he goes by the blood trail on the ground. When you find him, you can re-engage him, and his abilities are the same as your last encounter, but he will also cast Scent of Blood. This just causes him to fixate on a target and chase them for a few seconds. The fixated player just needs to run away, but be careful not to pull any extra trash packs. After Fenrir is dead, you can head back from where you came to take the portal back to the Halls of Valor. From there, you just need to go to the center and the door will be open, allowing you to proceed. You will need to kill some more trash, but it isn't anything you haven't seen at this point. Once you ascend the Stairway to Heaven, you will find 4 mini-bosses. Speak to them to engage them in combat. They each have one ability, but once a mini-boss dies, their ability will be given to the remaining mini-bosses in addition to their current mechanics. King Ranulf will cast Unruly Yell. This deals AoE damage and interrupts spell casting, but your group can and should interrupt this. King Haldir has Sever. This deals high damage to the tank and applies a stacking debuff that increases physical damage taken by 20%. King Bjorn has Wicked Dagger. This is thrown at a random player, dealing damage and reduces healing received by 50% for a few seconds. Finally, King Tor has Call Ancestor. This spawns an ad that slowly walks towards him. Upon reaching him, he will heal for 10% of his health, so CC and kill the Ancestor. After the 4 kings are dead, Odin will give you the Aegis of Grimoire. Your tank should right-click it to pick it up. Upon doing so, the tank will get a new extra action button. Shortly after you engage God King Skovald, he will cast his primary ability, which is Ragnarok. This deals high AoE damage to the group. At this point, your tank should activate the Aegis of Grimoire, which absorbs all damage taken from the front. Your group should be grouped up behind the tank to avoid the damage. While Ragnarok is being channeled, there will be patches of green fire that will spawn, so try to avoid them while still being shielded from Ragnarok. Skovald will also cast Fell Blaze Rush. He will charge at a random player, dealing damage to everyone within 10 yards, so keep the group moderately spread out. Finally, he will cast Savage Blade on the tank. This deals high damage but also applies a bleed if the tank is not protected with active mitigation, so tanks try and time that ability with your cooldowns. The Aegis of Grimoire will overload at a point. When this happens, it will be dropped on the floor. Skovald will pick it up and attempt to shield himself from the damage. Fortunately, you can just move behind him to continue attacking him. After the shield is over, the Aegis will overload again, allowing your tank to pick it up and use it for the next Ragnarok. Once Odin jumps down off his throne, you can speak to him to engage him in combat. Odin will cast Spear of Light on a frequent basis. It causes a spear to erupt out of the floor, dealing damage to anyone it hits. The spear will persist and deals damage to anyone standing near it. Odin will also pull everyone towards him and begin casting Radiant Tempest. This deals a large amount of damage to anyone near him and knocks them back. You should immediately run away when he pulls you in, and any speed boosts will help. Odin will periodically shatter the Spears of Light. When this is done, the spears will burst into glowing fragments that radiate outwards from the spear's location. The glowing fragments will damage and stun anyone they hit. Finally, Odin will cast Runic Brand. This will place a rune over the head of each player that deals damage every 2 seconds for 12 seconds. Each player should run to the corresponding rune on the floor. When you stand in the correct rune, you will be branded. This transforms you into a golden Valkyrie and you gain 50% increased damage and healing. At around 75% health, the encounter will end and Odin will reward you with a box of loot. This concludes my Halls of Valor guide. I hope you enjoyed this video and feel free to subscribe for more in the future. Thanks for watching.